Battery electric bikes completely changed the game for urban transport, but they actually aren't the final word. Right now, there's this quiet, radical transformation happening on city streets all over the world. Hydrogen-powered micromobility. So if you thought the future of getting around the city was strictly plugged into a wall socket, well, you are in for a seriously fascinating surprise.
$6.85 billion. Let that sink in for a second. That is the projected market value for fuel cell bikes by the year 2034. We've moved so far past experimental prototypes sitting in a lab somewhere. What we're looking at here is literally a multi-billion-dollar hardware revolution, and it's actively grabbing the attention of both global governments and massive mobility corporations.
So you've got to wonder, what exactly is fueling this massive explosion? To understand how a somewhat niche green tech concept transformed into a projected billion-dollar industry seemingly overnight, we need to take a close look at the financial trajectory, the underlying technology itself, and the absolutely massive logistical headaches these bikes are solving.
All right, let's dive into Section 1, the hydrogen bike boom.
Okay, starting out at roughly $1.25 billion in 2025, which is mostly driven by early-stage urban pilot projects, this market is poised to absolutely skyrocket to $6.85 billion over the next decade. That translates to a 22% compound annual growth rate. And hey, in the hardware and transportation sector, a space that is notoriously slow and highly capital-intensive, a 22% CAGR is just massive. It signals a full-scale transition from a cool pilot concept to a highly mature global industry.
Which brings us to Section 2. Why choose fuel cells?
Now, I know what you might be thinking. Why even bother with hydrogen when we literally already have millions of lithium-ion e-bikes out there? Well, it really comes down to one single word: downtime. Battery electric bikes are fantastic, sure, but they are entirely grid-dependent. And honestly, a bike sitting plugged into a wall for hours isn't making a business any money. Fuel cell bikes, on the other hand, offer extended range and lightning-fast refueling. You don't charge them, you refill them in seconds, exactly like you would a traditional gas-powered scooter, but the whole shebang has zero emissions.
The real engineering magic trick making all of this possible is extreme miniaturization. Through compact hydrogen storage systems, engineers have successfully developed these incredibly lightweight, high-pressure composite tanks and modular fuel cartridges. So instead of lugging around a bulky, super heavy tank, these compact systems give you an incredible amount of energy density without adding extra weight. This specific technological leap is the exact thing that has finally made fuel cell bikes commercially viable for everyday urban use.
Moving right along to Section 3. Who is adopting them?
If we break down the technology, Proton Exchange Membrane, or PEM systems, are dominating right now with nearly 47% of the market. And that's primarily because they offer the fast startup times and stable energy output you need for rigorous, everyday use. And where is that rigorous use happening? Well, it's happening in business. Commercial fleets dominate the end-use category at over 51%, right alongside shared mobility platforms. So right now, this isn't really your everyday consumer buying these. It's an absolute B2B workhorse.
And here's why that makes perfect sense for businesses. Faster refueling equals significantly higher fleet uptime. Think about it. If you're a delivery or logistics company riding this massive wave of global e-commerce, you need your vehicles out on the road completing deliveries, not just sitting in some depot hooked up to a charger for 3 hours. Hydrogen completely eliminates that charging downtime, which gives companies a massive commercial advantage on high-frequency urban routes.
Let's zoom out a bit for Section 4, the global regional race.
Looking at the global map, North America is leading the pack right now with almost 39% of the 2025 market share. This early lead is largely thanks to strong federal funding and some highly active trial programs. California, for sure, is a huge driver here, aggressively pairing renewable energy with hydrogen production. Then we have Europe following closely at 27.4%, which is anchored largely by their strict EU decarbonization mandates.
But keep your eyes open, because the real disruptor here is the Asia-Pacific region. APAC is the fastest-growing challenger, rocketing upward with a 24.3% growth rate. They are catching up incredibly fast, and that is fueled by massive smart city initiatives, high population density, and really aggressive government subsidies over in China, Japan, and South Korea.
And just look at the absolute heavyweights throwing their money into the ring here. Automotive giants like Toyota, Honda, and Hyundai, right alongside major two-wheeler manufacturers like Kimco, are pouring heavy R&D into these compact fuel cells and mobility pilot projects.
Honestly, when the biggest mobility manufacturers on Earth pivot toward hydrogen micromobility, it really cements the industry's legitimacy. It proves this is a serious, high-stakes global race.
Of course, no new tech is perfect. Let's look at Section 5, Roadblocks and Opportunities.
Like literally every emerging technology, there is a final boss blocking mass consumer adoption. And for hydrogen, it's the limited availability of dedicated refueling infrastructure. Unlike a battery e-bike that you can plug into practically any wall socket in your living room, a fuel cell bike relies on complex, highly pressurized pump stations. And right now, the high infrastructure costs and complex logistics just make these stations pretty scarce. So, solving this means we basically have to build an entirely new ecosystem from the ground up. It starts with securing government funding to offset those initial high costs, and then rolling out smart city pilot programs to test the networks. But honestly, the real game changer is step 3, deploying modular hydrogen cartridge swapping stations. Picture this, a simple kiosk where you just swap your empty cartridge for a full one in seconds. Pair that with scaling up green hydrogen production, and the whole cycle becomes genuinely zero emission.
The 2034 market report actually hits the nail on the head here. It says, emerging smart cities represent a strong growth opportunity. Pilot projects integrating hydrogen bikes into public transportation networks are gaining traction. Forward-thinking cities across Asia, Europe, and the Middle East aren't looking at these bikes as some fun novelty. They view them as a vital, long-term weapon against crippling urban congestion and pollution.
The technology is proven, the commercial demand is totally booming, and the global heavyweights are fully invested. The only real hurdle left is infrastructure. So, take a look at the streets outside your own window right now. Is your city ready for the hydrogen revolution? It is absolutely wild to imagine what micromobility is going to look like in your very own neighborhood just a decade from now.